I do want to kind of set the stage of why I picked the topic today and some of the backstory behind it real quick. So, we have been over the last few weeks talking real tech heavy about the product and how do you use it and implement it. And we get in the weeds a lot and read a lot of comments and questions about how to use things. And I thought we'd take a little bit part of the day and zoom out just a little bit and look at a model of the way of thinking in terms of our businesses. And then we'll apply the AI on top of that mode of thinking. Here's why I've had this thought. There was some news that came out this week of the speed at which AI is really advancing and some of the new things that these major companies are doing. And after I listened to this one podcast and interview, read this article, I had to go for a walk just to kind of let it sink in and what's really happening, behind the scenes. We have society that's going down this path, and we have this tsunami of change, technological change coming right over the top of society. And I think the winners are going to be the ones that have the most clear minds and the most clear outcomes. And it's going to get really, really noisy, both on social media, in the news. It's going to be hard to determine what's fake, what's real, what news story is real, what's not. Lots of confusion, lots of different competing opinions. I think we're going to start to enter in the next 12 to 18 months discussions that you're going to start to see with different leaders and people with different agendas to just start to deciding, do AI have workers' rights or not? How do we treat, do we get laws or not? I think we're going to start to see that in this next 12 to 18 months. And if you start to see that, it's just some noise. Is that fair to say? Right.
Hmm.
And so some of that also came to be when I saw really what's happening with these new server farms that's being built and the power that's being constructed to power these server farms. Because the real thing that's happening in AI, just to zoom all the way out for a second, isn't just the AI technology, it's the ability to compute and process. That's the real kind of underlying story here. So now we have server farms that have 100 and 200,000 of these chips, these AI processing chips that are taking the same amount of power as a full-size city to run. Okay. And so they're building these server farms and they're building these power plants to power them. To give you an idea of how fast this race is, XAI, they're building this new server farm with 200,000 of these processing chips. There's one of the largest in the world right now. And in order to power it, they're literally having to build a natural gas power plant. They're bringing in all of the Tesla battery packs to even out the power. They're going to be tying into the nuclear power plant. I mean, we have Google that is building or partnering with 7 different nuclear power plants across the world to power these server farms. So this is big stakes that's happening. And us as just small business owners, real estate agents, real estate professionals, mortgage professionals, running medium-sized businesses, we're kind of at the mercy of all of this kind of tidal wave that's coming here. So I wanted to give a framework today about how to think about the business and how to think about implementing AI that might kind of cut through some of the noise. On top of that, I still want us to keep pounding the message about how important it is that we stay focused on the AI-powered consumer. And as these consumers have more and more access to deeper and deeper, really smart technology, we tend to really view ourselves as these indispensable people in a transaction or in this economy. And I get it. I'm human first, especially in this complex sales cycle of real estate, let's say, or of mortgages and whatnot. Most of the people on the call are in. However, we look at like examples now, like that Portugal AI agent that sold $100 million worth of real estate already, as an AI agent. And I don't know how many people on this call have sold $100 million of real estate so far this year. Okay. So things like this are happening. I think it's very wise for us to kind of literally sit down and think about that and really understand our position and then how we win on top of all of that, right? How do we win? So that's really the framework for today. And I'm going to do the updates first, so I get this out of the way, and we'll go right into the content. Danielle, does that sound good?
That's perfect. Love it.
Okay. let's go. I'm going to share my screen here. So in the AI agents, the recent update that just hit is analytics. So now on each one of your AI agents, you're going to be able to see analytics of how your agent is performing, where it's performing, and at a kind of at a glance to see how active your AI agent is and where. And most importantly, you can also control these summaries. Do you want to get a summary of the activity of your AI agent and what do you want included in your summary? Okay. So every week, every day, you can control how you get these summaries of what your AI agents is doing. And I love this new feature. And this is the new feature of basically summarizing the conversations as they come in, and then it gives you an email with a summary of the conversation, so you don't have to go back and read the conversation. So it's a nice little feature here. So any of your conversations, you collect a lead, it will send you an email with a summary of the conversation, who it is, and then actually links right to the AI agent, so you can go in and see any information about about the consumer and the agent. So that's a really nice feature. Any questions on that, Danielle?
No, I love this summary.
Yeah, summary is nice, overview is nice of the stats. Okay. Now in Satori, um, this is the release, so it's not out yet, but it is in the next release. So I want you guys to know what is coming, and that's the addition of files and images to the board, which is a really nice feature. So if you are in, open up a brand new board, and if you look down here, you now have files, and it will be integrated with all of your files that you have uploaded inside of your Huzi system. By the time this does get released, there will be an option just to add a file, but you can also just drag and drop the file right onto canvas. So you don't have to do an upload or anything. You just drag the file off your desktop, drop it on the canvas, and you're added to the canvas.
Amazing.
That's files. And images is sort of the same thing. You can just drag and drop. But just for fun, I'll go ahead and since we're only have an hour, I'll just go ahead and show you instead of doing it live. You can now also edit the photos inside of your Satori board. So you can see the photos as a use case. Let's say that you've got your 7 or 12 listing photos and you want to use your photos to write your marketing material instead of the MLS output, right? Or just using the SparkPad to write it. You might want AI to look at your photos and craft marketing based on what the property looks like, right? Instead of statistics that you find online. So
Hmm.
you can drag and drop those on the canvas. Yes, it will read the photos. It can see what's on the photos. That's one. But my favorite part is the editing. Okay. So let me actually show you a couple of editing scenarios I was working on this morning and yesterday. So by dragging the photos onto the screen, connecting it to your chat window, you can now ask for Satori to do some photo editing for you. So let's say if you wanted to reimagine the landscaping, you can do something like this with just asking, hey, reimagine the landscaping. Actually, I'll show you here. Edit this photo to improve the landscaping of this house. That's literally all I said right here. It says, okay, what do you want? Do you want green grass? Do you want flowers? Do you want shrubs? What do you want? I said, well, just make it look like it's native for Bend, Oregon, because that's where this property was at. This is a listing in Bend, Oregon. Hopefully you guys can see here. And it says, great, here is an updated landscaping reimagine for Bend, Oregon. Okay. This example down here, I was just messing around. How good can it be at taking out singular things like changing out the bedspread or changing out the light fixture or reimagining one of the wall painted with a different color? So put your mindset in two different phrases. One, you're preparing listings for the market and you want to make sure they look as good as possible. Or two, you're working with a buyer that just can't see through the clutter or you just can't see the brown cabinets and they really need them to be white. Those sorts of things, you're going to be able to use Satori to do those sorts of tools here. So in this example, I just swapped out the fan and put a light there instead of the fan as an example. So you can make small little edits, you can make large edits, and I'm going to show you one of my favorite use cases is something like this. You take your daytime photos of your listings, and then you say, "Hey, edit the photo to make it look like it was taken at dusk." And then there you go. Huzi will edit the photo and make it look like it was taken at dusk. What's nice about these sorts of things is that a lot of these properties look great at different times of the day or in different seasons, but you might not want to pay the photographer to go out there and take the extra night photos, right? Or to go out there at a different time of the season. It's kind of hard. But you can actually ask Huzi to reimagine this in the fall or reimagine it with snow Or imagine it with the blue sky in the background and the trees and the flowers blooming, right? If you're taking the photos in the fall and everything's dead. So you can do those sorts of things now. That'll be in the next release, and I'm really excited about that. And it's for all sorts of things. I was messing with like, hey, put a logo on the side of a bus, right? Like put my logo on t-shirts and make swag and all sorts. You can do that with just natural language. Say, hey, can you see the image? Yep, put it on the side of a bus. Boom, there you go.
And then
So,
Eric, how do we get the photo out of that? I think you were showing we just merely right click to save that photo then.
yep, save as. Can you see it on the
Okay.
screen here, Danielle?
Yeah. Okay. Fantastic.
Yep. Lots of good. Any questions about that? Comments about that? You guys have any thoughts in the group? I love this. I
Let's
love this new
see.
feature. Everyone like this idea, by the way?
Rain had a great question. She asked if it's going to save as a high resolution photo, actually.
It does save as a high resolution. I'll have to get the actual dimensions for you, but it is a high resolution photo.
Awesome.
Yeah, good question. Anything else on updates? No more questions? All right,
Great.
cool. Let's get into the content then. I'm going to stop my screen here. And I'm going to ask a question of the group, by the way. I still would love to know. I'm going to take your temperature here on AI in general. Who is excited about all of the AI changes and who's now feeling slightly overwhelmed? Put in the chat, please. I'm sorry, I didn't say that. I forgot we were we're on the call.
And to specify, are you talking just AI in general or
I
AI with
am.
Huzi? AI,
I
just AI
am.
in general, the
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 speed.
exponential growth, the speed of
Yeah.
growth.
Yeah, the speed of growth. I just want to kind of get people's feelings and emotions here, how we're feeling about things.
I love this, and isn't this true? Most everybody's saying I'm excited and overwhelmed, a little bit of both, right? Like what excites us is overwhelming. Right?
Okay. Well, let's talk about this thought process then. Okay. We're going to introduce. Does anybody here know what the OODA loop is in decision making? Has anybody ever heard of the OODA loop before? Raise your hands here, put it in the chat. Tom Ogden here. Oh, hey, Tom. Good to see you, buddy. Okay. OODA loop. Here we go. Thank you. Here is the OODA loop. All right. What is the OODA loop? The OODA loop was designed by this Air Force pilot named John Boyd. And what he was famous for is that he could beat anybody in the simulator in under 40 seconds in a training simulator, in a flight simulator. Anybody at the time. Nobody could last longer than 40 seconds with John Boyd at the time. And he was able to figure out this process, what he's called the OODA loop, of the way to make fast decisions in a diverse environment with lots of variables to think more clearly to outmaneuver the competition, right? That's the framework of the OODA loop. It was so successful that he went on to like come up with strategies for the military, the F-16 fighter jet. A lot of the properties of the F-16 fighter jet was actually designed as a result of John's work with the OODA loop of how to get processes into decision making into the cockpit faster. And I was thinking about this strategy. I was in the Marines, so we studied this a little bit. But I was thinking about this as business owners that we're in the cockpit of this fighter jet, and we needed the ability to like make these fast decisions. Now, I loved his quote. He said, "Machines don't fight wars, people do, and they use their minds." And although I don't think being in business is like a war, it is very competitive. And we don't use these machines and these tools and the technologies to win. We outthink our competitors, right? We out-strategize, we outmaneuver, we outsell them, we outlead them. So that's why I want to talk about the OODA loop today, so we can talk about that and how to use Huzi and all of the suite of tools to make faster decisions, to get to the truth faster, to outmaneuver the competition. And when I say the competition, it's not just other agents or mortgage brokers or other, salon owners or whatever business you're in. It's the competitor that we're talking about being the consumer that's AI powered. And let's be honest, just AI in general. Okay. So as AI gets smarter and smarter and smarter, it's doing more without us, and we need to stay on top of that, and that's how we think. So that's what the OODA loop is. So OODA is an acronym. It's observe, orient, decide, and act is what it stands for. And our quote that I want to start using behind the scenes here is observe smarter, orient deeper, decide faster, and act with precision. And this will help kind of cut out some of the noise. A lot of times I get questions, and Danielle too, and I know we all find ourselves thinking is, can Huzi or can AI do this? And I just want to say that's still kind of the wrong question unless you've gone through the entire thought process ahead of that first to decide, well, is that even something that we should be asking about or looking at? Or is it just something that competition's doing or we feel guilty we're not doing, we want to explore? That's what OODA stands for. So the old way, was like we had all these different scattered notes. We were Googling stuff. We were, making gut decisions because that's just the way we've always done it before. That's the way my manager told me to do it. And a few months ago, I was at an event with the CEO, Leo of EXP. And Leo was talking about, this decision that he had made at the time when you remember when the buyer broker agreements came out, it was
Mhm.
last year, and they EXP took a certain stand that was controversial about how to handle these buyer broker agreements. And so I asked him, I was like, hey man, you made this decision and you got a whole bunch of pushback, including from a bunch of your top leadership and agents, in your organization. What do you do when you make a decision and you get a bunch of feedback? And without hesitation, he literally just said, I trust my decision-making process. And I loved that so much because it wasn't about he was smart. It wasn't because he had figured things out that other people did. It was that he had a decision-making process that he had honed and crafted over the years of being a leader, and he relies on that to make good decisions. And that to me was the sign of a good leader, a quality leader that had a process for making decisions. Now with AI, we can get to that process and through that process faster than we ever had to before, as long as it is a process. Okay. So I created some questions here for you guys as a little workbook. I'm going to get you guys the copy of these slides afterwards so you can digest this, review this, use this as a resource for you. And I wanted to come up with these kind of insightful questions that you can ask yourself to kind of get to the source of truth, to know how to use systems like Huzi to advance your business and not be another distraction. An elephant in the room I want to point out is that AI for a lot of people, not just Huzi, but just AI in general, is actually decreasing their productivity and making their overall intelligence, their personal intelligence decline because they're relying on AI. There's statistics that are coming out already about this. So 2025 in my world is about simplifying your tech stack, getting rid of the noise, cutting right to it, and not getting distracted with the what could I do, but instead of just staying focused on the what should I do. Okay. So these are some questions. So I'm just going to go through a couple of them. Um, like number four, what's happening in my pipeline right now that I haven't looked at closely? And what's changing in my market that I haven't responded to yet, whatever market you might be. Okay. These are some like probing questions that we're now going to use, and we're going to use Huzi to actually get to the heart of it. But that's observe. Orient. Oh, come on, baby. There we go. Orient. Data without perspective is just noise. We rely on data a lot, and we use the MLS a lot for data. Systems like RPR and all these things but unless we have perspective, data is just noise. And so we got to find ways to give perspective to the data to find out what it actually means for our business and most importantly for our buyers and sellers or our clients, no matter what business that you're in. So one of the questions here I like right now here is what do I think is working right now? And the follow-up is what proof do I have? Okay. This is an orientation process. You're like realizing like where am I and where do I go? And what am I reacting at emotionally instead of strategically? I love gut feelings. Danielle, do you operate on, I mean, you're a
Hmm.
parent, right? And
Hmm.
like you operate on gut feeling. I don't think there's anything wrong with those. But being able to have that backed by a process of decision making or a data collection process that's oriented in a certain perspective is hypercritical in today's world. Does that make sense, Danielle?
Well, absolutely. I mean, your gut feeling too. The only reason that we might lean into those sometimes is because we know it's informed, right? They're informed gut process, gut feelings, and that's what makes them valuable. So,
Now, inside of all this, and again, I'm giving this as a resource. I'm just going over what this is, and we're going to get into the rest of the content. But also try to put some prompts here. It's like, how can you use the tool specifically in order to help you get through some of these decision-making processes? Decide. Okay, now, who's a perfectionist on the call? Is there any perfectionists on the call? Eric, you're a perfectionist? Josh? No? Okay. The leaders and doers aren't perfectionists. And I was at a Tony Robbins seminar one time, and he's tricked everybody, and like everyone like loves identifying as a perfectionist. And he was like, okay, well, is perfection possible? Everyone's like, no. He's like, okay, so you're chasing an impossible standard. People are like, yes. He's like, well, if it's an impossible standard, then that isn't that the lowest standard possible, not the highest standard possible? Like, why would we put perfection on a pedestal at all when it's not achievable? So if it's a fake thing, then it's actually a really low thing to strive for. That's what I want to get to here is that the idea of like iteration in this world is iterate, get it out, test it, get feedback, do the next version. And before it was hard because it took so much work to get out one version of something, one version of my new open house strategy, one new version of how I'm going to talk to buyers and deliver total cost analysis, one version of fill in the blank here. It took a lot of work to get to that. With AI now lowering the barrier of entry, you can get through those iterations much faster. And I just encourage you to do so like very, very, very clearly. Okay. And then act. What am I doing this with this and what feedback am I getting? All right, now let's get into um, Satori. On Satori, to observe, one of the use cases I would highly take to give perspective on all of your MLS data is to download your data from the MLS, save it as your PDF, and load it in your Satori or load it in your SparkPad, and now make the data yours. Daniel, what's that famous who said it? Was it Thomas Jefferson or Benjamin Franklin? Like if you want to lie, use data.
Oh,
There's a there's a really good quote about that. I'm gonna butcher it. Please, somebody can look it up or use Huzi to look it up real quick. But it's something about if you want to lie, use data. Most importantly, if you want to lie to yourself, right? If you want to prove something to yourself, you want to look through data to try and confirm your bias. And so I encourage you to load that data into Satori, load it into the SparkPad, and step out of yourself and look at it with a new perspective to find out really what's going on. And when I say data, it could be your own productivity, your own, profit and loss statements, your trends year over year, your average sales commission, your average cost of sale, no matter what your business in. Like really step out, look at those things, load it into Satori or the SparkPad, create a persona that helps you evaluate it as an observer, not as a participant. You guys get the difference between the two there?
mhm. And this is to avoid that confirmation bias that AI can absolutely feed back to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Questions to Satori would be like, what am I missing that if I didn't pay attention to would kill my business in 30 days from now? Right? Questions like that are the sorts of questions that you can ask AI, like a consultant that will help kind of excuse my language, but get you out of your own bullshit and
Hmm.
get to really the truth of things, right? In this decision-making processes. Now insert this. This is for marketing. This is for operation. This is for hiring. This is for making. This is the overarching just umbrella of thinking. But observe your market, your clients, and yourself. I put all of these on there. It's your market, your clients, and yourself. You got to have a clear observation of that. Um, as one of the projects I worked on a few years ago, I made a documentary, and if I was going to make this documentary, if I was going to make it my perspective, that's not a documentary at all. That's just my opinion piece, right? That's propaganda of sorts. And so finding a way to step out of the participant and into the observer was a really great skill that I learned as a result of that. And it translates right to business. So please step out of the participant, get in the observer role, and use Satori to do that, especially with your data. Some of the things that we didn't have access to even just a few months ago, like AI agents, if you have AI agents that are, in your social media DMs and are talking to clients on your Facebook page, on your website, all those conversations is great data. If you want to train your agent to ask questions like, what do you feel about the market? What do you feel that's going on with rates? Do you think that the market's going to go up and down? How do you think technology is going to impact your ways of buying, and selling homes or insert industry here? these questions, you can train your AI agent to engage in conversations like this. And this is great data that you can use to direct your company or your business in any direction. So please use your AI agents in that way as well, too, Danielle. Does that make sense?
Smart, smart.
Okay. One of the fun things, Josh made me a scheduler, AI scheduler. So now I use my AI agent to manage my schedule. And I have a couple different Calendly options, for different sorts of appointments that I'm having at different lengths. And so the AI agent's doing a great job of helping determine like what calendar they need to book on. And it's really fun because it has a lot of information about me and then it asks the user questions about things that are going on. And so starting to get a little bit of feedback, I can look to see like before my appointment, it's just not schedule an appointment here and then book the time, but there's a little conversation that I can go and like look at what's happened and really what the thought process is of the person that I'm going to be meeting with. It's really cool. I didn't have that ability to do that before.
No, and you're
And
eliminating how many emails back and forth, back and forth. Yeah, I'm happy to meet with you. What would you like to talk about? Okay, what day is best for you? How much time should we? Oh my gosh.
yeah,
And the
yeah,
user experience, right? Like the person that wants to meet with you to wait for those responses that you can just quickly move
get
forward.
right,
That's
get
incredible.
right to it. But just as importantly is kind of that macro data of just how are people feeling, what are they thinking about, what are they worried about, and what are the kinds of problems that I can solve for them that makes me valuable in their life.
Mhm. Stephanie had a great question here. She said she'd be interested in knowing the user experience on the other side of that. So that's one of the awesome things with the AI agents is that you can test it. So you build out an AI agent, and then when you're in your dashboard, you can test that before you push that live or place it wherever you want. So you have
Who was that asked?
Stephanie.
Stephanie, would you, I mean, Mike, I would love to know like more detail, like what makes you ask that and what are your concerns about? So I want to make sure I really heard that question. If you have the ability to unmute, that'd be great.
Hey, yeah, sorry, I'm gonna unmute. I share an office, so it could get a little noisy. Apologize. Um, but I was just kind of interested in what maybe I kind of worded that wrong. Probably their feedback on what their experience was, like how much more comfortable they are, or how eager it makes them to really have the appointment.
And is there a concern behind the question or you're just curious about
No,
the
just curiosity.
Yeah, so I would say it's too new for me to like really tell you. The first couple of people that scheduled was like, dude, that was so fun and that was easy, and I loved the conference. Like here's just an example of it. And Josh, thanks a lot. Like you really made the conquer. You started this off with this really fun. So right, it just kind of gets right to it. I like to schedule a meeting. It asks a little bit about Eric. What are some experiences? It's a nice little bit better than just a Calendly link. So it's actually a nice way. Let's say go chat here. And you can see the experience is actually Zoom or meeting, how long is the meeting call, what's your time zone, all those sorts of things. And so there's no misunderstanding. They get an email, it's loaded on my calendar, it's on their calendar, and then I get a summary of every conversation in the email.
But
So
I think this is actually a really great question too, because you have to also start with what problem are you looking to solve? So, for instance, if you don't have, a ton of requests to come in, to meet with you, and it doesn't take you a week to get back to people or something like that just because of the demand, then this may not be a problem to solve. And actually, perhaps it feels more disconnected for your user if you're replacing a text message option and you're typically responding within 45 seconds and you only get one of these requests every 6 months. Does that make sense? So it's like think first about the problem you're looking to solve. Don't just create the tool without actually needing the solution. Um, what is
I'd
it we're
love
looking to do?
to.
you could apply OODA to all these decisions. Like, should I have an AI agent do my schedule? Look through OODA, right? Observe, orient, decide, act, right? Just keep like faster and faster and faster. That's exactly what this thought process is meant to do, to help you make a decision. Should you or should you not? Where should I spend that time? And then what improvements do I make constantly as a result of making this decision? So OODA, 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 I love it. I think it's a great way of thinking about should I use AI? Because guess what? One of the ways that AI makes decisions, they actually use this thought process in the decision-making process in a lot of AIs because it's a very fast, flexible way of making decisions. So that's why we're spending so much time on it today. If you really let this sit in, then I really don't mean to like be preachy here. You guys are all great business owners. Just especially when we're applying AI to it without a framework, it's going to get noisy and messy, and you're going to get distracted. So that's why I just really want to focus on that today.
Yeah,
Um,
I'd love to. just
Oh,
pull
hey,
back the
Josh.
curtain on that. Hello, for a second, in case anybody's like, "Oh my God, how it?" And oh, anyway, just to let you know how that works, because it's not very complicated. Basically, all it does is collect information with those questions, give them the Calendly link. They're able to go schedule their meeting, and then Eric gets an email with a summary of the conversation. So that way, before he goes to the meeting, he's able to look over that summary. But there's no complicated talking to this or that. It's just a summary of the conversation with information that links them to their appointment on his calendar.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks, Josh. It's working great, by the way. Um, so on Orient, a couple of little tips here using Satori. I think one of the best use cases for me when I Orient is to, again, to remove my own bullshit, is I have two or three different chats on one board. And I'm looking at if I were to make this decision, how does this look? If I were to go this direction, what does it look? And I have them both side by side running at the same time. Also, at the same time, I generally will have a third window that's only just helping me do research. Hey, go online and find the statistic. Hey, what other companies have made a decision like this, not in my industry, that resulted in something similar to an outcome that I'm looking for, right? So I have this research chat window on my Satori board, doing these constantly as I'm just thinking through what I'm trying to do. Now, why is this like? I'll tell you, most business owners don't go this deep because they don't give themselves the permission to do so, or they don't carve out the time to do so. And so we're just operating in this like, hey, we get it done, get it going, get it going. This way I always do in open houses. This way I always convert somebody when they walk in my door at my retail shop. Just go, 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 go. It's just really cool that you have a tool like Huzi that can shift those paradigms, and that makes you stand out from the sea of noise that's going on. Okay. And so if you have a really good social media presence, please don't rely on this. Like if you have a really good, traffic to your website currently, because it's got Google SEO, please know that Google SEO is getting disrupted quickly, by chat interfaces and AI, right? So a lot of the rules are just changing the way you get lead flows. But the way that you'll always have good lead flow is if you're just a higher quality person worth being sought out. That's it. And you can only do that if you've got a really great decision-making process. And I suggest OODA. Okay. Next page. Decide. So again, side by side comparisons using are really, really good. I would also look to see the opposing viewpoint. So if you have a way of doing business and your competitor has kind of the opposite way, like let's say you're high end and you have a competitor that's low end, right? Well, that doesn't mean that you're doing things completely different. It just means you have a different angle. Go learn from the best of the best in your marketplace that's doing the exact opposite of you. And there's going to be lots of things that they do that look the exact same way, it's just the black and white version of it that you can directly apply and win that doesn't look like all of your same competitors that are in the same market as you. So it's hard to do that before, but you can use SparkPad, do research, query, go look at for competitors that are doing the exact opposite of you or the exact different kinds of markets. Look for them, reframe them, use them in your way, and now you look and feel differently than all your competitors in your same marketplace. That makes sense, Danielle?
It's kind of a different version too of avoiding that confirmation bias, if you will. Like you can easily continue down the same path, but have you taken the time to determine that that is the best one? So pause for a minute and consider an alternative. Why would somebody approach this in a different way? Just to, give yourself that confirmation too that you're heading down the right road before you get too deep down that path and build too
It-
much.
and and like even understanding this, like if you want to like really understand OODA for your business, use Satori. Grab a YouTube video on OODA. Grab a article or an image on OODA and really understand, and then say, listen, how would I even use this framework? I am a fill in the blank of what you are. I have this new framework of OODA. How would I use this to make a decision about? And then fill in like what you're going to work on today. I'll just walk you right through, right, exactly how to use that
I
framework.
love that.
Okay. um, and then act. Move fast. I just want to say this. There are competing theories here. Slow is fast, fast is fast, right? There's lots of competing theories. I just would have to say that stagnation will make your clients feel a little bit indifferent about what you're working on. A sense of progress and a sense of adaptation to the marketplaces faster than your competitors will give them the confidence that you are the leader that they want to give their business to.
Hmm.
Right.
Mhm.
So when new things hit the market, let's say a new possible move by the Fed or whatever, you have AI within 5 minutes to fully understand it, convert it into the language of your buyers and sellers or of your clients, post it in the places that they're going to be, send it to directly to people that you think it would really, really serve, all in a matter of minutes as long as you give yourself the time. And what would you do it with an OODA loop? Oh, maybe your value proposition is how do I be the source of truth in a world of noise for my home buyers and sellers or my borrowers or fill in the blank here. If that is something important to you, please act fast. Please act fast. Okay. Tool alignment. Again, this is a resource for you guys here that we kind of made sure I wanted you to see, like observing. You can use in Satori website, PDFs, and the YouTube boost blocks to be able to get to observe to what you're working on or what your competitors are working on. Or just as fun for me is what are people working on in other industries that I could take the best ideas and transplant them to my business. That's actually how when I first started, Danielle. What year did you first start in real estate, Danielle?
'09.
Okay, oh nine. Yeah, it's been a minute.
It's
And
been a
let's,
while, yeah.
by the way, who's been in the business longer than 20 years? Anybody in the call been in the business longer than 20 years? I'd love to know. Maybe raise your hand. See anybody, Danielle?
I have,
Yeah. Cheryl, is that you?
yeah, 29 years.
29 years. Fantastic.
Awesome.
So you remember like me, like doing the the carbon copy,
Yep.
purchase and sale agreements, right? On the hood
And
of car
and the books. There was books.
and the
That's
books and
copy.
Thomas guides.
Yeah,
I can't
different
even
world now.
I sound like my grandfather. But
Yeah.
I do remember, like literally, it's not, I don't mind admitting it, running around and getting, carbon copy signed on the hood of a car at the Safeway parking lot, right?
Yep.
Like didn't have DocuSign and whatnot. Um, but I remember specifically as a brand new agent that the guy in my office that I really looked up to, gave me the number of what he thought a new agent should do. And it was 6 deals at the time. He's like, Eric, I believe in you. I believe you could do 8 or something like that. I did the math of like what 8 deals would net me for the year. I was like, I can't live on that. I just left a good paying job, right? So I had to go to look to other industries to find what was working in their marketing and the way they talk to clients because I didn't want to copy the mediocrity that was producing 6 deals, right? So my thesis was, wow, if the average was 6 deals at the time, 20 some years ago, then what's being taught produces that. Why would I go learn from what's being taught to possibly produce the average that is not desirable to me? So I went and looked at Cadillac and Nike and Intel and other industries to figure out what they did. And first deal, I did 63 transactions, right, by myself with freaking carbon copies and no DocuSign and everything, right? Because I didn't look to do what was being done. I was using these sort of frameworks, decision-making frameworks, differently than the average real estate agent at the time, right? So that's why I just encourage you to break free the chains of what you think the paradigms are and set new standards, really. And you can do that with AI. You can do that with Huzi. Okay. So weaponize. I went ahead and got a little aggressive with the terminology here on weaponizing, which I, I just thought that was fun. Like I really want you to think about like really being in the driver's seat here with all of these things. And um, there's a Daniel, I love to do those adventure races and do climbs and mountain bike races and all that kind of stuff. And there's a quote in mountaineering, and it stuck with me, and I use it in business. And that is the quote is somewhere between the bottom of the mountain and the top of the mountain is when you find out why you climb at all, right? And so this business, like there isn't anything that's not worth doing that isn't uphill, honestly. And I know how hard some of this is to learn and adopt and infuse in our day, but damn it, that is what's worth doing. Okay. And so to stand out, like it is an important mindset to think differently than the competitor. And mostly it's to have a stronger mind and a more clear mind than the competitor. Those two things will let you stand out because now you have all the intelligence at your fingertips.
Hmm. Hmm.
But before it was the smarter competitor. Now we can all be equally smart if we have a good decision-making process and a clear mind. And so to me, that's the differentiator. Now it's no longer organizational intelligence because everybody has access to it. It's frameworks like OODA and it's the quality of your clear mind. Okay. And that's why I say all the time about resourcefulness and creativity are the currencies of the future, because those are mindsets. Those aren't tools. And when you have those two things, then you can pick the tools. And I hope Huzi is a great tool for y'all. Okay. So for the next 30 days, I would love it if some of you like really took me up on this and really started to think about and challenge your assumptions. Like take what how do I think that I'm performing in my open houses? How do I think I'm performing during my first buyer consultations, right? And break those down. And if you're not getting, wild number of referrals in every client interaction, there's room for improvements. Is that fair, Danielle?
100%.
Right? And so if every single time you don't end a meeting and there's just like, oh my God, that was amazing. I'd love to refer to so and so, or you're getting an email saying, oh, Sherry met with you yesterday. She said I had to meet with you today. If you're not getting that constantly, then something can be improved in every part of your process, everywhere that you touch a client, in your email signature, the way your voicemail sounds, everywhere, and you can pay attention to those details like using a framework like OODA. So I would just really spend some time. Maybe you have something like we talk about internally, like 9 minutes of greatness in the morning, where you like, I'm just going to spend 9 minutes learning something like really, really good, how I can improve my skill sets today. That would just, and those little things stack up over time. Reduce the friction. Please deploy agents. Don't sit there like I used to and just make a million scribbles and try and figure it out on my own. Sit down, iterate, use a Satori board, put a couple of chats up, have a research agent, and get to the truth. And then track your progress. One of the fun use cases inside SparkPad, I have one chat of just all of my notes, all of these notes. I take a picture of it, I keep it in SparkPad, I upload it to SparkPad and have it transcribed, and I have it there as my resource of all of my digital thought process there, and it's cached in my perspective, not just a data set, but it's cached in my perspective. What am I trying to achieve with it?
Mhm.
I love that use case inside SparkPad. So I just have one chat, has all of my notes from everywhere. Or there may be times where I just turn on the microphone and I just dictate to it. I say, "Hey, don't do anything with this. Just capture my thoughts here." And I have one chat where I have access to all these great ideas and whatnot that I just don't have time for right now. I can access those later and then get those deployed and they don't get lost anywhere. So that's a really nice use case for SparkPad to track your progress. Any questions on that, Danielle?
No, I love that. I do the same thing. Like, I'm going to dump a bunch of information here. I don't want you to take action. I'm going to come back to it later, but I just want you to remember these things for me.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. Now let's go into questions. Is there any questions from the group or any comments from the group while I'm going into the next board here, Danielle?
no, everybody's following along and
Okay.
loving the insight.
All right. Let's go. I know this is a little bit different than last time. Okay. So let's see here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my prompt engineering board. And I'm going to show you guys that and give you guys the ability to copy it if you want here. Okay. So here's why I'm showing you this use case for a prompt engineering board. So I have now set up Satori with a few boards, and we are going to be templatizing some of these so you guys can have access to them so you don't even have to think about this. But one of them is a prompt engineering board. Okay. The reason why I have a prompt engineering board is although I'm pretty good at talking to AI, I can continually get better, right? And so what I've done here is put together these two videos that I just happen to love about prompt engineering, these two great books I have prompt engineering, and I have two personas that I have pre-built to work on my prompts. So this is a nice deep sort of research. If I really want to say, hey, I want to do some research on my business from the standpoint of operation using the OODA Loop framework, help me. And this would do. So let's actually just make one. Let's actually do one. Okay, I'm going to use that one to evaluate my business using the OODA framework. Where do we need to make improvements in, Danielle? Give me a use case.
I'm sorry for your
In my
can't hear
business,
you
give me a
breathing.
use case just for fun. Do you have any, where should I make an improvement in my business?
Lead generation.
Okay, okay. Um, go past clients. Okay, this is perfect. Same. Let's say, turn this into a system prompt. All right. And now with those two iterations, I now have a fully fledged system prompt that I can copy and paste and use it in the SparkPad or use it in my Satori board that's going to give me a deep, rich experience of solving this problem instead of me saying, hey, I'm a real estate agent. I need to get more leads. It's not. So a prompt board, a prompt engineering board like this, or using the prompting Spark in the SparkPad. Josh, did you push that prompt Spark to the main, by the way?
I can check on that.
Okay. If not, then by the end of the day, because Josh will do it by the end of the day,
Yeah, I'll do
inside,
it right
oh,
after this.
it
Oh,
is here. It
yay,
is here.
it's
Good.
there. It's good too.
So we built your prompt wizard as well. So you have inside the Spark pad, or you can use a board inside Satori about how to generate a prompt like this. And so this Spark will just walk you through to create a nice system prompt. If you're not really sure exactly where to start with talking to Huzi in this way, start with this wizard or ask for a system prompt in Satori, and you'll get much better experience. Does that make sense, Danielle?
Yeah, yeah. And Tracy has a question here. Tracy might need you to explain. So she said, do people find that you are getting leads using AI tools, or are people reluctant to engage, having a better awareness that agents are using AI for this type of thing? Tracy, can you go come off mute and explain a little bit,
Yeah,
maybe?
so I guess my question, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I guess my question is, I just listed a property last week and I'm not finding that people are engaging with the content the way that it would have done, say, 3 years ago. So I'm just wondering whether or not, because people are aware of AI and because of that, they're more reluctant to engage. So therefore, I'm not getting as many leads from it. And I don't know if it's the market. I don't know. So that's why I'm just wondering if it's, one thing or another or a combination, if
So are
Yeah.
that
you
makes sense.
saying that like you put up a listing and just the amount of like, email inquiries or phone inquiries or whatever is just significantly down over what it used to be? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, like so for instance, I did a virtual open house. I didn't have any engagement with that, partly because I was using AI in order to write up the synopsis of what I was listing. I used AI in order to create my marketing tools, like my engagement that way. Whereas before, I found maybe 3 years ago when I listed properties, I was getting more engagement and response, whereas now I'm finding that I'm not getting it. But I don't know if it's just the change in time or if it's that people are aware that they're using AI, so therefore they're not responding. I don't know. I'm not sure. So I'm just wondering what other people's thoughts were about it.
Yeah, Tracy, can I give a different perspective here? So, if
Sure.
you were to hire a team member or like an assistant, for instance, and then they were in charge of your copywriting, and then you saw a drop in engagement, your thought might be that the copy written potentially is not as um, uh,
Engaging.
exactly right, or
Yeah.
effective. That's the word I'm looking for, as effective. So it's still about the copy. It's not that the person is like, I can tell that Tracy's assistant wrote this. The copy is not engaging and it's not effective. So
Well,
so that you
I
just need
think
to.
I think it's more a question of whether or not people are just not engaging because um, they know that it's kind of an entrapting kind of thing. We want their lead information, so therefore they're not engaging that way. Like I don't know if I'm explaining myself properly. It's not
No, you're
necessarily the words that are being used. It's just that people are more reluctant to give up that information anymore because they know what's going to come down the line, meaning that I'm
Okay,
going to put them on a list and I'm going to, you know what I mean? Like I feel
sure.
like times have changed a little bit.
Got it. So the question is more, are people more reluctant to respond to lead generation type things? It's not so much AI. The question
Yeah,
is, are people, yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. But
yeah.
because people are finding that that kind of response is going to trigger another response and then another response. So meaning that they're going to be put into a list that's going to lead to emails sent to them. Like I do that often where I'm looking at signing up for something, but then I know they're going to follow it up with an email. They're going to, you know what I mean? It's not real engagement. And I think that that's why I'm reluctant to sign up for things. I hope that makes sense. I'm not really
No,
sure if
you
I'm
you are absolutely nailing it. And this is an exact use for an OODA decision-making process, is this sort of thing. So what I was showing in the screen before, the way we're just kind of talking about it, like, hey, I think it's this way or this way. This is the traditional way of like thinking about a problem. Like I have this problem. In the last 3 years, I've noticed I get a decrease, activity on my certain listings. I have a gut feeling I'm not quite sure. That's what OODA is for. Is like this couldn't have been. It's almost like you are a plant in the crowd here. It'd be like such a good use
I'm
case.
not.
Yeah, I know, it's great. So this would be the exact thing is you would sit down and using this strategy, you would like, all right, how do I get out of my own way to frame this in a question and see how even the lack of clarity, how you're trying to describe it, is the first stumbling block. Any problem in business that you can't clearly define is impossible to solve. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
If you sit with that really deeply, now you can just sit down and just talk to the SparkPad, talk to who's like, listen, I think this is a problem. I don't really know how to get to it. And then, rephrase this for me. See if you can get clarity around what the problem actually is. Then get to your next stage is your orientation, where you can like reframe these problems, do the research to figure out is this a problem with just us? Is this an overarching? Is this because we're seeing a move from boomers to Gen Z buyers? What else is going on here? You can't just guess your way to the answer, but you can use Huzi to figure it out,
But
right?
does Uzi, does that have like how does that become the all-encompassing answer? Like how can I trust that what the answer that gives me is going to be the right answer? Does that make sense as well?
Yes.
Like,
Oh
do you know
gosh.
what I mean? I know I'm probably opening up a bigger
No.
thing of words here.
No, and this is, oh my gosh. Okay, so the latest statistic that scared me the most showed that unless you're in the top quartile of expertise of whatever you're engaging with AI in, AI is actually driving productivity and efficiency down because they don't really know what's the right answer. And if they don't prompt it right and they take the answer like, well, it sounds pretty good, so I'll just do that. But it's not good enough. But the experts
Mhm.
know. And so this isn't about trusting the AI. This is about trusting your decision-making process to know if you've done the right research to come to the right decision using AI or not.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Yeah. And so, yes, is it really smart? Yes. Does Who's have facts? Of course, but it's not good enough, you guys. It isn't. You have to be the expertise on top of this, or else AI will just run your business for you, and
Right.
that's when you're replaceable. So,
Yeah.
yeah, like follow if you really follow through this process here, and you ask yourself these questions. Okay, I want to get clear on the problem. Then how do I do the research to figure out is it me? And then what changes do I need to make to overcome the obstacles that I've discovered? And then that becomes your next iteration of your plan. And then you just keep doing that over and over and over to get the results that you want.
Okay.
All right. I
Yeah.
have some gut feelings
Thank
about the
you.
answer, but that's not enough, right? I would
I
sit
love
down
that.
here and do the market research to find out. Like for instance, you could ask your SparkPad to go to Reddit and look for articles talking about people if they're getting lower conversion of online forms because of consumer behavior and changing behavior. You'll go look for Reddit and come to all the so you don't have to just trust AI. You can also go find these like pockets of conversations happening online, have Huzi or
So you're
Satori.
saying SparkPad is the one that I would go to find out that kind of answer?
I would like to, you can start here. So this, an AI that's connected to the internet, that knows what kind of business that you're in, right? Because if you've been using SparkPad a little bit over time, it has some memories. It knows what you've been working on. And so then it'll be in context. It'll go surf the internet and bring back relevant articles or research or data that you might find to be really helpful in your decision-making process.
Okay,
But
thank you. I appreciate it.
to be super clear, Tracy, I just want to clarify too, because you said, how do I know that Who's the best? How do I know that I'm going to the right place and that I'm getting the right answers? And what Eric's pointing out to all of us here is that um, it all has to do with what you're asking and how specific you're being. If you're too specific, you might get this confirmation bias coming back. So you need to go through this OODA process to really figure out first what it is you're trying to accomplish, and situate yourself well. Otherwise, absolutely not. You're not going to get good responses back, or you'll be sent down the wrong path. So, um, thank you for bringing that up. I think these are great
No,
points.
Like
I
I would start.
appreciate for making me not sound like I'm an idiot when I was asking the question.
I hear exactly what you're saying, and the problem is it's not clear enough for you to make a good decision based on it. You
Yeah,
know, you need a
yeah,
little more research. So I will tell you, you'll find statistics like actually people are more likely to give their information if they clearly see that the value is of equal or better than giving up the information because it's painful to get spammed, right? And everyone knows they're going to
yeah.
get spammed. And the problem is with lots of industries, but in the real estate industry specifically, like somebody put in their information in a Zillow, and then what happened? They got called from 8 agents all of a sudden, right? And it's not fun. And we just got out of the political season where I don't know about you, but my phone was blowing up with all this stuff, right? And so that's what I mean by a noisy world, you guys. This is a great what I mean by a noisy world, and you have to pierce through that for people to be willing to give you the contact information because they trust you with it. Right. And this is a great use case of that. So yeah, thanks for the question.
Thank
What
you.
else?
Thanks.
You're welcome. But I was going to say something like this. You can tell to go online and inside of Satori, don't forget that it is connected to the internet. And so you can start with this. Maybe you want to find a good book on psychology, consumer behavior psychology, right? And use that to understand a little more clearly what's going on, right? Consumer behavior, right? Oh yeah, like this actually I've heard about this book. So right here, now great. Now you have an understanding of consumer behavior in a faster way than you ever had to before. Instead of sitting down thinking, I wonder what's happening. You don't have to wonder. If you really are genuinely wanting to know, you can actually find out now with AI. And that's kind of the whole point of the OODA loop. Okay. Any other
And
questions? Yeah.
I was going to say, so from right here, maybe if you haven't heard of that book, you could ask, what are the main, what is this book about? What are its principles? And then from there, decide if you want to use it.
Mhm.
Um, I'd love to chime in sort of and touch on the things you were talking about, Eric, and share some thoughts if that's all
Oh, I'd
right.
love to. Yeah, please.
Um, so you mentioned, people, they sort of know they're going to be spammed to some extent, and you want to make sure that you're providing some sort of fair trade. And that was sort of the thought process behind things like the lead gen agent is if you're able to sort of show somebody that you can provide value, especially in the context of what they're looking for, that's going to make that sort of a lot more sort of reasonable. So things like, our lead gen bot doesn't say, hey, what's your name? And let's go. It's, hey, what, like a good salesman, right? You ask some questions and you demonstrate that you have, or your AI through you has some understanding. And that's sort of a way to cross that barrier now in a way that you couldn't before. And just to touch on, you mentioned being in the top quartile and how sort of important that is. A really great analogy that I heard, it's a little more sort of computer programming, but like the senior developers treat the AI like a junior developer, and the junior developers treat the AI like a senior developer. So at the end of the day, you need your expertise to sort of shine through and make that final call. And then when you go back to it the next time, you say, okay, I went in with this. I didn't get exactly the results I was looking for, and I had to make these changes. So now when I return to the AI, I'll already have those changes sort of in mind, and then I'll be able to iterate and continue to have that efficiency informed by my decision making, instead of sort of throwing up my hands and letting Satori take the wheel, even though it's not the worst thing you could do.
I will say, like, thank you, Josh. That was excellent point. If I'm the consumer, I don't need your flyer or your single property website anymore to find out all the information that I needed, right? So of course, the reason for them to come to you has changed, and we're all feeling that, right? They don't need that anymore. But might they need something out of your sign or your QR code or your AI agent that's completely different, that gives them a completely different experience with you? So if depending on where your listing is, that AI agent might have nothing to do with that particular property, but has everything to do with the lifestyle of living, working, eating, meeting single people, church, faith, outdoor activities, what the boating situation's like if there's a lake. Those are the sorts of things that they might be way more willing to give up their name or scan a QR code for, rather than like, hey, get a virtual tour on this property, right? They know they can get a virtual tour in a million places these days. Those are not new at any point anymore. But the specific thing that you can do that separates from the rest of the world would be something that they would scan, click, or text for, right? That's the way to think about the technology and lead generation today is piercing through the noise. Why would they give a crap about a virtual property tour when they can find that anywhere? What else can I do? right? And then that will start to get you to the truth. Hopefully that was helpful. Anything else, Danielle? I know we're at time.
No, this is fantastic. Thank you so much, Eric. And we're going to be talking. I hope you guys will join us next week too. Everybody that's on the call right now is a Huzi member, which means that you have access to our live community calls too, the first Tuesday of every month. That's at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we're going to be talking exactly about this because we have been diving really deep into the tools, as Eric likes to describe it. Sometimes, we've been in the weeds, and we're trying to like take notes on how we should use all this stuff and where to click and what to do. But it's also like going through the process to figure out what it is we're wanting to accomplish. Are we just trying to learn the tool or are we trying to do the thing? And so we'll be talking about that too. And I'd love for you to bring kind of your perspective to that. And thank you, Eric, for framing this for us because I think this OODA is going to be a fantastic tool as we lean into our AI,
Yeah,
how to get the most out of it, as Tracy is framing here too.
I love this book. This is a great book. So I just asked what's the best books on behavior and consumer behavior. It suggested this one. This is actually a fantastic book. So if you haven't read this, go on Satori, drive it on the canvas, and get a little outline and get a little tutorial about what this book's all about today. Okay. And
Fantastic.
we'll send you this. We'll send you the full this little workshop here, so you can like go through the OODA process, and you can use these as little prompts to work with Satori or SparkPad, either one. And we'll get that to you today. Thank you,
Love it.
guys.
Thank you so much.